Hey, Choose Life Nation. This is Dallas Cohen, the Rebound Coach, and you are watching or listening to another episode of the Rebound Coach Live. I am so glad you're here today. And I don't know about you, but sometimes you can just feel stuck. Like, I know what I want, but somehow I haven't been able to find it. I haven't been able to get to it. I know where I want to go, but I'm not taking the steps. Like, I'm self sabotaging and it's a mess. There's a way out. And we want to talk about that today. If this is your first time sharing virtual space with me and you're like, what's a rebound coach and who are you and why am I watching this? Got you, boo. I'm Dallas Cohen, the Rebound Coach, and I'm super glad you're here today. I'm a life coach. I help people get unstuck. Particularly, I serve high achieving women of faith who have been through betrayal or trauma or abuse and who want to reclaim territory in their relationship with themselves. That, of course, started with my own story, y'all. I was married 10 years to a man who wanted me dead, and he almost got the chance to try to attempt on my life. And that didn't make a whole lot of sense for someone like me who grew up with godly parents and folks who loved God, loved each other, were married for a lifetime, and were a good example of self-sacrificial love and marriage. They were a good example. At the same time, I was molested from the time I was 8 to the time I was 16, and that radically affects how you see yourself. Those are identity forming years. It affects how you relate to God in a household of faith and how you relate to men. So fast forward, I met the man that I married and eventually divorced, and there were definitely red flags. There were reasons not to be together. But I was and am a praying woman. I believed God's answer was yes. And because of that, I believed that whatever came, we'd outlast it, we'd overcome it. God would swoop in and save the day, and everything would work itself out. And God did swoop in and save the day. Like, that did happen, just not in the way I was expecting. We got into this cycle of what I call coping and crisis. And that's when you're walking on eggshells and you're trying not to upset him, and you are trying to follow the rules even though the rules keep changing, and you're doing your best to make things okay. And it's kind of like trying to hold a house of cards together. Try as you may, and you be very careful and very, try to keep it on a stable surface and try not to see the wind come, but somehow, some way, the wind comes and everything falls down and you have to try again. And so the fall down was a crisis, and we'd get into that cycle where you're dancing and trying to not destroy everything, but yet and still somehow it keeps getting destroyed. And we did that for a better part of 9 years, almost 10 years. Everything came to a head when he had left for another woman. He was a serial adulterer through the whole marriage, but he left for another woman. And I found out him and that woman had been plotting my murder, which is something I wish on no one. I wish on no one to find that out. It was soul crushing, absolutely soul crushing. And everything, it's the record scratch moments where you're like, oh my gosh, how did I end up here? How is this my life? I was threatened as a wife, as a mom, as a woman, as a child of God, but also as a coach. I'd been coaching relationships, marriage and relationships in the faith-based space for like 5 or 6 years by that time. And if you can imagine building your platform, your identity around a particular idea and a particular stance, and that being the very thing that has blown up in your face and is in pieces all over your feet. And it's like the pregnancy that you're trying to hide. Eventually, folks are going to find out. And that was where I found myself. And through a series of supernatural events, there's no other way I could describe it to you, divinely laid out events. Not only am I alive, my children are with me. We're healthy, we're growing, we're unlearning and relearning. And you and I get to have this moment together. And I believe that my story happened the way it did so that we could have this moment together. And today, we're here to talk about how to get rid of emotional clutter. Y'all, have you ever watched oh, I didn't tell you this. This is important before I go into today's topic. So I wrote a book. I wrote a book out of all of that happened to me, and it's called I Choose Life, because I could allow the identity that my ex-husband had planned for me, and the one I had agreed to, honestly, to tell me who I was, what I was allowed to become, how I was allowed to express myself, how I was allowed to be a mother, how many years I had left on the planet, because homeboy had a death date for me. Eesh. Or I could choose life. So the name of the book is I Choose Life. Rewrite your love story and change your legacy. And it's not just my personal story. It is my personal story, but it's a life map and a lifeline for any of you whose story resonated with mine. If you have found yourself in an abusive situation, whether that's physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, which is something that's not frequently talked about, or religious abuse, if you find yourself in those places, or you love someone who finds themselves in those places, this book is for you. You can find this at thereboundcoach.com/book. That is thereboundcoach.com/book. You can get this book right here, physical copy that I will sign for you, write you a love note, and send it out. Or you can get a copy from Amazon, or you can get an ebook copy. All of that information is at thereboundcoach.com/book. Okay, so today we are talking about how to deal with emotional clutter. Have y'all watched the movie Hoarders, or the show? It's a show, not a movie. If you've ever watched one, I don't make a habit of it, but I happened to pass through one day and saw an episode of Hoarders. And, like you would imagine, it kind of makes your skin crawl. This woman, unfortunately, had a house full of clutter, but it was, exponential, so a lot of clutter. And at one point she had a path, like, to the door, right, or to the bathroom, and eventually that had been covered with more clutter, and it was not sanitary at all, and her bathroom habits were not sanitary. And of course, she's on the show because she or someone else has reached out on her behalf to get her some help, and the help arrives, and she's resistant. And while that makes for great television, it's it's very sad, and it's something that shows really well on TV. Like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with her? She doesn't want to get clean. She doesn't want to get rid of her junk, even though it's harming her, even though it's toxic, and even though it's really unhealthy, and it's limiting what she can do with her life and in her house. She's resistant. The truth is, even though that looks like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with her? I think we all at different levels and different areas have that same pattern happening. I mentioned in my story how I went from coping to crisis, and we do that in other areas of our life. It's not just about an abuse dynamic. We can do that to ourselves in many situations where we're just coping. So, in a house, you imagine that the house, she's getting along every day. Maybe she goes to work, or I don't know her situation, but maybe she goes to work every day. She comes home and she's just really tired, and it's no time to do the dishes, so the dishes just pile up, and eventually she starts using paper dishes, and maybe she doesn't have time to throw out the trash, and so the trash just piles up. And maybe she did something broke and she didn't have time to get it repaired, or didn't have the energy, didn't have the mental or emotional energy, or didn't have the money, right, to get something repaired, so it just stays broken. And all that doesn't work anymore. And so you use a workaround. When something doesn't work, you find a new way to do the old thing, right? And maybe that took a new appliance, and then that one broke, and oh gosh, I can't deal with that, so I just bring something else. And before you know it, you have a house full of junk and clutter, and you can barely make it from your front door to your bedroom to your bathroom to your kitchen, right? That's how it happens. And it can happen to us. It happens to us in our emotions, in the way we treat ourselves, in the way we treat other people, in the way we think about ourselves. If we don't do the maintenance that it takes to, that's garbage. That's something that served me for a time and it doesn't serve me anymore, and I need to get rid of it. So we can be stuck. We can be stuck. And if you can imagine that, those pathways, maybe from the front door to the kitchen, from the kitchen to the bedroom, from the bedroom to the bathroom, right? But there's clutter everywhere else. So if you can imagine that pathway, we also create pathways, right? So I can get up, I can go to work. I can go from work, I can go to school, or to pick up the kids, or to go to the church, or whatever your habits are, whatever your grooves are, if you can imagine that. And the whole rest of your life is just full of emotional junk. So from the abuse that happened when you were a child that was never quite dealt with, you just learned to survive. It's a workaround. It's an adaptation. You've adapted, right? But not healthily, but you've adapted, right? So that's just sitting there. And then you marry an abusive person, or you're with an abusive person, and you may get out of that relationship, but all the emotional clutter from, he didn't love me, he lied to me, he spoke negatively to me, he called me names, he told me I was stupid, all those things, that's not dealt with. So it's just sitting there. So we got childhood abuse sitting here, and then we got abuse from domestic violence sitting there, and we've got work overwhelm sitting there, and we've got pressure and perfectionism sitting there. Like, all of this is our emotional clutter. And while we may have grooves and pathways and ways that we act when we show up at work, and ways that we act when we show up at church, and ways that we act when we show up as a parent, that still can be just the pathway we have between the emotional clutter that we carry every day, all the time. And when we don't deal, it's just like a hoarder in a house. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until even those pathways are cluttered up. Now, here's the problem. We think that we're doing really well. We think that we're hiding our issues. We may not even be consciously aware of our issues. The people who love us might be like, hey, there's looks like there's an issue over there. Nope, I don't have no issue. Everything's great. You ever been the person trying to help someone else see the issue, and they're like, no, what are you talking about? Everything's wonderful. I don't know what you're saying. Right? We can be that person too. Just so you know, we can be that person too. And excuse my voice. I am dealing with some stuff, but it'll be fine. I am fine. It sounds bad, but I'm fine. So we might be stuck too. Okay. You might only have a path through one way, and even that eventually gets covered up with junk. And we're snapping at the family, and we're snapping at friends, and we're, not able to get out of bed. You might suffer with panic attacks, or be so depressed you can't move. Your hygiene might suffer. Other things may be going on because the weight of that emotional clutter is just chokes you out. Okay. So it may not be safe or sanitary, but it's familiar, especially when we've been piling this stuff over the years. We don't even notice that, hey, this is not healthy. Hey, this is not the best way to be, right? We're just used to it. We're just used to it. And maybe our loved ones who are close to us, who've been with us a long time, are also used to it. Excuse me. And so no one's helping, no one's stopping, no one's helping, there's no intervention. And it might get way into the place where you're not able to function anymore. And then people are hospitalized, and in marriages, then people get divorces and other things because things haven't been dealt with before it got to that place. Okay. So if you know what you want and can't seem to get there, you know you want to break out of a certain pattern into a different one, but you're not quite sure why you can't get there. You may even know the how steps, but somehow my step isn't stepping, and I'm not sure what to do. Okay. If you're surrounded by the familiar, and instead of comfortable, you're choking. Okay. You might be an emotional hoarder. That's not fun, but it's not final either. So it does start with acknowledging, like, hey, I have an emotional clutter problem. I haven't dealt with my stuff. I've just let it pile up. Sometimes it's just like it takes a lot of energy to stop where you're going and go do something else, go maintain, right? It's not as fun. And we talk a lot about, moving into destiny or moving into your dreams, and that's exciting. And it's exciting to do your best to take steps in that direction, and it can feel like a drag or a slowdown to go back and maintain, to go back and deal with things that are over now. Like, oh, that happened so long ago. Why do I have to still deal with that? Who cares? It's over now. I just want to go into the new dream. I want to go into the new relationship. I want to go into the new job. I want to go into the new whatevers. The problem with that is clutter doesn't go away just because you step on top of it. Right? You just step on top of it. I'm just going to go do this thing over here. I'm just going to step on that and go do this thing over here. It doesn't go away, and it impedes. It slows you down in so many ways. So, and it also spills out into your physical environment. So if you have a cluttered physical environment, that very, very well can be connected to a cluttered internal environment, right? So what do you do? Like, okay, all right, I'm an emotional hoarder. I've kept things around too long. What am I supposed to do now? Got you. Of course, if you've been around here for any length of time, I got you 3 steps for you. Okay. So I'm going to give you 3 steps, but they're not exhaustive. So these are not the only steps you can take, but here's 3 steps you can take. Number 1, identify where you're stuck. Okay. You might be like, I'm stuck everywhere. Okay. Start with one place, because you can't take action on everything at one time, but you can take action in one place at one time. So determine for yourself, where's the biggest stuck place? I'm stuck in my relationship with myself. I'm stuck in my relationship with God. I'm stuck in my relationship with another person. I'm stuck in my relationship with food or social media or anything, right? Consider where's the most important place for you. Then number 2, gather your team. We think about the show Hoarders and why we're even watching, right? Because they have somehow a family member, a friend, a loved one, or themselves have reached out for help, and they've assembled a team of people to come help them get rid of the crap, right? So who's your team? Who are your people that's going to help you? I am a emotional declutter coach. It's the best way I could describe it. But I'm a person on that team. If you're one who says, I'm gonna get rid of my emotional clutter, I'm done with this, great. I need to assemble a team. I'm a person on that team. Okay. So number 1, identify where you're stuck. Number 2, gather your team. Number 3 is the excavation. It's the getting rid of it. And I tell you, that's the hard part. That is the hard part. That's like, oh man, but I liked what I was familiar with. It hurt, but I was used to it. And at least I knew what I could expect, right? So here's some kind of understeps, substeps, if you will, for getting rid of it. Confess. So a lot of times we have things on our hearts, on our minds that we just haven't said. And some thoughts just need air. Sometimes when it's in your head, it's loud and it feels hopeless and it feels overwhelming and it feels like I'm just going to die underneath the weight of this thought, right? And you can carry that for years and years. But this is an opportunity, and I just encourage you to get it out, get it off your chest. You need to write it down. If you need to make a voice note and send it to somebody, if you need to call up your homegirl, if you need to go to the altar at church and just whisper, like, get it out, okay? So confess your secrets, forgive those who have hurt you and used you and abused you. I know this is easier said than done, but it is vital. It's vital. It's vital. I don't have time to go into like all the forgiveness steps today, but forgive, okay? And change course. Changing course is Again, easier said than done. But if you're like, okay, I've been doing this one way for my whole life, I'm going to do it a different way just once. And then you can do it a different way twice. And now you know how to do things 2 ways, right? This is how we get free. It is little by little. It's not one big fell swoop or like one big whoosh, right? It's a little by little by little, but you can do it. All right. Number 2, give yourself permission to grieve and to process. A lot of the stuff is clutter, not because we've experienced bad things, but because we have never processed through. Because we don't allow ourselves. I got to get on to the next thing. I got to hurry. I'm busy. I got to serve all these people. And if you're not busy, you give yourself something to be busy with so that you're fully distracted. And we're running away from our thoughts and feelings, and we're running away from the grieving process, and we're running away from dealing with our crap. It doesn't go away because we choose to step on it, right? If we choose not to deal, it doesn't go away. So I just encourage you to give yourself permission to process, to grieve, to think through, to share, to forgive. Okay. And also have funerals for things. So physical things. So if you are physically decluttering, and I am in that process because I can collect some stuff. Okay. So one thing I do is to do a funeral. I do this with my kids also. If there's a toy that they have that is now all done, like they've had it for years, it's broken, it doesn't talk anymore, it needs to go in the trash. So if they care about it and they've had it for a long time, they don't want to let go, they will take it to the trash can ceremoniously, put it in there and say, "Dearly beloved, we've gathered here today to celebrate the life of this toy. It was a very good toy." So I remember when I had the toy and we had so much fun together. So they're eulogizing and giving this toy a funeral, and then it goes in the trash or it goes out the door or whatever. I did that myself. I had a t-shirt that I probably had for close to 30 years, which is ridiculous, but true. I've had it for a very, very, very long time. And it was faded and tattered and done. It was done. It was all done. And it was sitting in my drawer because I like to hang on to the stuff until it can't be used anymore, and it can always be used some more. And I was like, you know what? This is done. So, and I thought about why I didn't want to give it up. And if you ever watch the hoarder thing, they really resist because they have emotional connections to the clutter. Even if it's trash, they have emotional connections, and they feel like they're going to lose out if it's gone. And depending on how long it's been there, they feel like they are connected to it, and they lose a part of themselves if they throw the junk away. So the same thing with my shirt. I had to think about, why don't I want to get rid of this? What do I feel like it's connected to? Oh, I remember when I was young. I remember with my dad. I remember where we were, what we were doing when I got this shirt. And this shirt reminds me of that season of my life. So in my funeral for the shirt, thank you, shirt. You were an amazing shirt. I remember when I got you. I remember what this season represented. It was a very good season. I'm very thankful for it. But this shirt has got to go, right? Not everybody struggles with this. Not everybody struggles with physical clutter, but for those who do, know that it is connected to the emotional clutter as well. As things, I want to hold on to the good. And it's a good thing to cherish fond memories where it can be, I don't want to say error, where it can be a challenge, where it can be stumbling for you, is if you're holding on so tightly to the good memories because you feel like there's no more good coming in your life. If you feel like it's never going to get better, then you're hanging on to what was. And what I want to tell you is, when you release what was, it allows you to have a better today and a better tomorrow, because you can reach for that now. Your hand is free. You're not holding on to what was. Okay, so I just want to encourage you to let go of the clutter. And if you need help letting go of your clutter, I have an opportunity for you, and I'm excited. Okay, so if you happen to be in the Tampa Bay area, there's an upcoming event that you can go check out at the reboundcoach.com/events. It is called Soul Nourish Night. And I wanted to create a sacred space, an opportunity for ladies to come and do these things that I just shared about. So if you have something on your chest that you need to release, you're like, yo, I am sick of holding this secret, and you want to share with someone confidentially who's not your best friend, who's not a therapist per se, not going to counsel you or anything, but just going to listen. Sometimes you just want to be heard, man. We're creating a space for you to come be heard. We're creating a space for you to come be seen, be known, and experience safe touch and yummy food and make new friends and have fun. And sometimes we just benefit from silence. Like sometimes we just need peace and we just need silence. If that is you and you need a break from your life to come and get your soul nourished, go to thereboundcoach.com/events for more information. It will be on Friday, May 17th. So that's not too long from now, May 17th, from 6:30 to 9 Eastern, of course. There's no live stream component. It is an in-person event. So you can find out more information, how to get tickets at thereboundcoach.com/events. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing time and space with me. I'd love to know in the comments how this has helped you and blessed you and what steps you are going to take to get rid of the emotional clutter in your life. Thanks again for joining me. And until next time, everyone, choose life.